We'll call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, April 15th, 2014. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a portion of the meeting where a member of the audience may address the board for up to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board this evening? Okay, Superintendent Graydon.
Just a couple of updates for tonight. One is I handed out a document, letter that was sent to me from Gary Collins related to the teacher evaluation legislation that had come, that I had testified on in Lansing, as well as Representative Zemke had talked about us at length with. You can see at the time, Representative Zemke's language and some of the language that Mr. Collins had talked with us about were in conflict. They've been resolved, and I think we feel very confident that we're moving in the right direction. He said he wanted to make sure you got this letter, had a chance to review it, and then next time he is here for another meeting, he can share more about that process. So confident about that, and I applaud Representative Zemke. I think he's done a good job with that legislation. It needs to get forwarded on. Also, I handed out, I think, calling all vendors, education, innovation, and technology flyer. We are hosting demo days, working on with various furniture and technology vendors to hold a series of days at Saline High School from April 28th to May 9th. Looking for us, as you know, we really tried to look at the different types of spaces in student learning and how they interact. And so Heather Kallstrom has worked with some of the vendors to say, let's have us a chance to really look at the items, get student feedback on it and staff feedback before we move forward on some things for next year. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to leverage the interest that vendors have in working with Saline area schools to get a good sense of what it is our students are really interested in. So that's coming up, and certainly once we get more information about when things will be, we'll have opportunities for the board to participate in that. Also want to invite everyone downtown tomorrow night at 5:30. The art banners that are going to be hung, or I think they are hung now, 80 banners have been placed exhibiting student artwork for K through 12. 187 entries were received. The top 80 as judged by 3 local artists have now been put up and will be on the light poles downtown in April and May. But tomorrow night at the Four Corners at 5:30, there'll be a ribbon cutting opportunity for students and their families to go and find where their banners are at, and really an opportunity for us to celebrate the success of our students. And we're very positive about our art program, and the Spring Arts Festival is coming up here in a couple of weeks, so it's a great time to celebrate our young artists. Lastly, snow days. It's very prophetic that we talk about snow today, but we did get clarification. We had sent out some information to staff and to the community related to House Bill 4295, clarifying whether or not we needed to make up 3 days or 2 days. The legislation is now clear. We do need to make up all 3 days based on our need to get to 1,098 student contact hours. So the school calendar will be adjusted. And information will go out later today to students and staff clarifying the June 6th date, which had been scheduled to be the last day of school, will be a half day. That will be a full day now. Monday, June 9th will be a full day. Tuesday, June 10th will be a full day. And Wednesday, June 11th will now be a half day. High school exams will be held on the 10th and the 11th. And one thing to note, and Raphael, you can sit on your hands for a little bit here, but this will not impact seniors. Seniors will still get out at the same time, and commencement ceremonies will still take place the first Sunday in June. So really, this is an impact for our K through 11 students. Our seniors will reap the full benefits of 9 snow days. So that's my report. Oh, one other thing. Monday, April 29th, mark your calendars. It's the spring recognition for the foundation, 4 to 6, up at the Stone Arch. We had our meeting this morning with the foundation, and it appears as though we will be getting a check for a large amount of money that day. So we're looking forward to that on Monday, April 28th. That's all I have.
Okay, anything from board members?
I had the opportunity to go on the Next Gen demo tour and got to see the I don't remember, it was a first grade classroom, kindergarten, first grade classroom, which was just amazing that these little guys and gals are coming in and using technology and learning things, the same things that kids without the technology are learning. You know, it's the same curriculum, but they get that added bit that prepares them for our society a little better. And then had the opportunity to go on over to Heritage and see the 5th grade classroom over there. I think it was 5th grade. Come on, Brady. I could use a little technology here. And then the into the middle school and a 7th grade classroom there. And they were all excellent, and it was amazing. I'm a technology guy, and I loved the engagement that the teachers provided. Just seeing how excited they were, and seeing how, they even told stories of, being a teacher that had been teaching for 15 odd years or so, and how they'd done it, 15 times already, and now they were able to do something so much different. And it really was engaging and increasing the excitement in their career, as well as providing new stuff and, I think, better education opportunities for our kids. So I would encourage the board to continue to pursue this for the entire district, because it was a wonderful experience to see, and not just because we're flashing technology, but because we are seeing good results from it in both the students and our staff. So.
Got anything, Paul? Okay, Jacinth?
I would want to share some information from March 15th from the Legislative School Board meeting conference that Janice so kindly accompanied me to. I got it last week, but I thought the discussion of last week was too important to waste time. So anyway, I just made copies for you of the talking points of that meeting, and one of the talking points was a proposed budget, which they called Classroom and Kids. And it isn't a difference in the financing as far as the total amount, but you probably have heard this already, maybe gotten it on your emails, but it's more of a distribution of the finance so that it can be more easily adjusted according to individual school needs. Other than that, it was about teacher evaluations and student testing. So I'll pass these around.
Thank you. Anything else, Dave, Chief? Raphael, got anything for us?
How many days?
27.
27.
27.
Not gonna count. I'm not gonna count.
Just 2 quick things. One, I want to thank Superintendent Grady for going up to Lansing and testifying in front of the committee. I think if you look over the last 30 years, there's been a significant loss of local control as the federal government and state government have really kind of almost taken over local school districts in many ways. And I think that when it's appropriate, I think we need to stand up, we need to advocate for ourselves. And certainly with our reputation here in Saline, I think we can do that, we can do that confidently. So I applaud your efforts in doing that on this key issue. And I'm sure there'll be other key issues where I think it'll be appropriate for you to do that, also for board members to speak out as well. Secondly, Congressman Wahlberg came to the high school, I guess it was a week ago Monday, and I went on the visit, stopped into an AP government class, and he gave a little talk and took some questions from the students. He is on an education subcommittee for career development. So we went through the graphic arts area and also the automotive tech area with Tim Tomosik. But then we stopped into an English class, and help me, there's a young man who has accepted an appointment to the Air Force Academy.
Yep, Ben Herrick.
Ben Herrick. And we stopped in his classroom, and the congressman had a congressional proclamation for Ben. And it was kind of neat, because all the kids in the room stood and cheered for Ben. And that was, it was one of those moments that I say, okay, this is why I'm on the school board. And that it was an excellent moment there. And that, but it was a good morning with the congressman in the building. Okay. Too many papers. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So moved.
Chief, and second from trustee Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No scheduled reports tonight.
Correct.
And we do have 3 action items this evening. The chair will propose the motion to approve the 2014-15 pay to participate fee as recommended by Superintendent Graydon. Do we have a second?
So moved.
Second by trustee Freeze. And that discussion or?
In your packet, you received a memo dated April 8th looking at the 2014 pay to participate recommendations pursuant to board policy 8485 that we will establish a fee and will be reviewed by the board. If you look, I'm recommending the fee remain the same as it was last year, and actually it's the same fee that it was the year prior to that. We did meet last night as a policy committee and reviewed policy 8490 and 8500, which the athletic review committee, which also included their packet, Mr. Ellis and his group reviewed those policies and made some recommendations associated with that. We reviewed those and discussed some of the issues associated with that. And it does kind of dovetail to the pay to participate fee issue on the backside, but my recommendation is that it remain the same for the coming year.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Scott, when will we have the recommendation from the policy committee?
My sense, and Craig and Diane were there, is that we're going to take one more look at them at the policy committee the next time, and then the following meeting they would come to the board.
So at the first week of May?
Potentially the May 13th meeting, depending on how policy meets. Yeah.
There was a little bit of language tweak.
It's very similar to the recommendations from the committee.
Okay. So we're asking to vote tonight before we know what the policy changes are?
Yeah, and the policy changes wouldn't, are not intended to impact the actual fee. It could in fact, so for example, one of the things we talked about last night would be, we may look at an issue of a credit. I'm not saying we will, but a credit for a student who participates in a non-district subsidized sport or self-funded sport. The actual pay to participate fee would not change in that scenario.
Okay, so if a person plays 2 subsidized sports, they pay more once?
At this point, my recommendation is that they would still continue to pay one time.
If they play 2 subsidized sports, they pay full fare for both?
At the current time.
Yeah.
Based on the recommendation.
And if they play 1 of each, they would pay 1 of each?
Pay one of each, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just state that, we've had a lot of discussion around this issue. It's a complex issue. On the surface, it looks like it's simple, but it's rather complex. I feel good that we've at least held the line for the last 2 years. It's tempting sometimes to look at that and say that could be a potential revenue stream for us. And we could sit here and we could raise it because we can, but we've elected not to do that. And I think we're making progress in the right direction. We're anxiously looking to see what the policy committee comes forward with, and I think this will continue to evolve. Any other questions or comments before we call the question?
So it's been 2 years of evaluation with no change, is that what I understand?
If you look at the committee that worked on this proposal, it's a very good cross cutting of our community with teachers and parents and coaches, and their attitudes were the ones that were taken into account to write the proposal. So I think it's based on some good sound judgment.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Recorded vote is 5 yes, 1 no, with 1 absent. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the school of choice for 2014-15 as recommended by Superintendent Grady.
So moved.
Support.
Secretary Heineck with a second from Trustee Carter.
All right, enclosed in your packet is an April 4th memo related to school of choice. And as you know, the main shift with school of choice last year between this time last year and now is the board passed a policy looking at the concept that we should never have more than 10% of our students be considered non-residents. Looking at that 10% number based on the previous fall's count, and our previous fall count, we have a total of 159 what we would call available non-resident slots per our school admissions policy. This recommendation for you tonight calls for a minimum of 64 slot availability, the vast majority being kindergarten. A couple of notes, if you look at the attached documentation, it notes the changes from the previous year. And so as you look, we've eliminated high school of choice from the thing with the exception of the Saline Alternative School, high school. And then we've also changed our first grade number from a 10 to a 1. Our focus continues to be kindergarten, making sure that our kindergarten class has a sustainable number and can grow throughout time. We really have, I think, looked at trying to make sure that our number of students accepted to school of choice is consistent with the overall enrollment patterns within our district.
I see some new housing construction. Do we suspect we'll pick up some families from that? I don't know if the one on Lower Road, right past the waterways, is that going to be part of us?
Yep, portion of that is ours.
And then the one on Bemis and Willis.
Yep.
Yep,
I see.
that is one of ours. There's a couple of other developments that are just adjacent to the district. We do anticipate seeing, I think it's important to note that, you know, housing development, because of frankly, the birth patterns that we see now, housing developments don't translate into the student enrollments. And I'll use Wildwood as an example where just that development generated students. Currently, Harwood Farms is a development that has generated a lot of students. And frankly, it's something we've talked about with the Houghton property. There's a type of home development that occurs that is what I would call family friendly and generates student enrollment. Now, use the Lower Road development as one that just in general is not likely to generate a significant number of school-age students. So we do anticipate a little bit, more balance, but I think there's all the scenarios we've looked at in Washtenaw County, we see a decrease in school-age population continuing.
And I think that threshold is about $240,000.
Yeah.
Right around in there. That's considered
Affordable.
a starter home
Yeah.
today. Kind of shocks me, but but from 240, in that 180 to 240 range, that's where families are attracted to.
Anecdotally, the reports I get from our realtors locally is that housing stock that comes on that is family friendly is sold virtually immediately. I mean, there's a report from someone who in Saline Ridge who literally 24 hours on the market, multiple offers, sold for slightly above the asking price.
Saw my house in Wildwood and I'll move down to Lower Road.
There you go. This man, honestly, people, if you again, that churn, and President Holden's talked about it in the past. I think more so than development, the idea that we start to turn housing stock over, that the existing stock, and have people who are moving in that are families. That's a way for us to continue to balance our enrollment. And I think the idea now with districts in Michigan and throughout the Upper Midwest is that if you're about where you were last year or the year before and you may be declining slightly, that is the new sweet spot, where the idea that you're growing exponentially like we were as a district and doubling in size in the 10 years from 1990 to 2000, those days are over, both from a development standpoint and from a birth rate standpoint.
Did Ann Arbor release their school of choice figures?
I have not seen the files. I know they did not receive 750 applications, and their window is closed now. So our window does open up now. If you recall, in the past, it doesn't mean that we open up these slots and we get that exact number. These are the slots we have available. The strong focus continues to be kindergarten and at that lower elementary level.
And what did we have slots versus applications last year?
Last year, we had, I think we took over 120 students. We had, how many do you think we total? We had students still on a waiting list at the end in certain grade levels. Not at kindergarten though. We exhausted our kindergarten list. So.
2 questions. What is the current enrollment at the alternative high school? 44 students? Okay. Because I see we're taking one in each
We
grade
take
level.
a minimum of 1, so because
Okay.
of the nuance of that program.
And then the second question that I have, at your recommended rate for bringing in these students, would this be staff neutral?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The chair will put forth the motion to approve the financial review contract with Taylor and Morgan as recommended by Superintendent Graydon. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Zimmer. Want to talk to that?
Yep. In your package, a memo dated April 4th, external financial review of food concessions. I want to look at the opportunity to review our food concessions operations as you examine cash handling, accounting allocations, reporting procedures related to that, interview school personnel and the different folks involved in that process, and then really look at that as a way to get feedback from them related to best practices and what we're currently doing. So it's both what are we currently doing that we need to look at adjusting, as well as what are some things that other districts are doing and other accounting procedures we want to make sure are in place. I do look at this potentially to be something we want to do in a variety of areas, probably picking an area annually and identifying whether or not it's worthy of an external financial review. And I know Assistant Superintendent Warner feels the same way on that. The proposed cost is around between $2,500 and $3,000. If the board approves it, the process will begin on Monday, the 21st.
And how long?
They're anticipating until they kind of conduct their initial information gathering phase on Monday. They're anticipating 2 to 4 weeks to have information back to us. We did investigate multiple people in terms of before selecting Taylor Morgan as a recommended vendor.
And this doesn't have any, because we're no longer providing any services to Ypsilanti.
Correct. Right. It's solely
So it's
focused
just-
on Saline Area Schools.
So,
I think what reality is that over the years, as the district has changed in its composition of how we do funding for food service, how we do funding for athletics, we're at about $2-3 million worth of cash coming through the district from all the different sources.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, Plant Moran, the audit, does not necessarily do a cash audit per se, cash management audit.
Right, I mean, they choose certain transactions.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So from my perspective, $3 million is not audited. It's just, a good business practice for us to have.
Right.
yeah, I think
That's
what
my
they're
perspective.
providing is a process audit as opposed to
Yeah.
a cash audit.
Yeah.
Hopefully this gives us some very good information.
And I think that's the expectation of one of the outcomes of this, is that we will get some recommended best practices on how to handle cash within the district. Whether it's, at an athletic event or a school play or even a club or subsidized sport doing their fundraising. I think there's that need to make sure that we have policy and procedure that is written and is followed. Because when we're dealing with money, we're dealing with the public trust. And we want to make sure that that public trust, that we uphold that. So I think for the amount of money we're going to spend here, it's well spent. And I think we'll be able to put forth some policy moving forward that'll be good and protect all the interest involved.
As Janice can tell us many more stories about sales tax example, how parents don't quite know how to handle sales tax. And that's true whether it's Boy Scouts or whether it's SASA. It's a phenomenon that any parent has been involved in the funding side of programs and understands. So if we can get some insight from some professionals on how to handle it best, that's great.
So what is the actual scope of the audit?
So essentially,
Food services.
food service, and essentially really focused on food concessions where there's the
Okay.
cash handling. So you look at the operations that occur outside in the stadium and the snack bar area, as well as then we also have operations here at the middle school. And so really examining and investigating all of the aspects of that, not only the cash handling, but also kind of the accounting allocations, inventory management, the reporting back to the different organizations in terms of what their take is on the final outcome in terms of the net proceeds from that event.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to build confidence in that process.
Yes.
Make sure we do it right.
Simple as that. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion items. We have social and emotional wellness follow-up. Trustee Delhay could not make it this evening. She has a child that is ill. But Assistant Superintendent Latch, did you want to?
Sure, I can give you an update where we're at. So we're forming a small group. Diane's going to be part of that as well. And our goal is to work on more of the parent element around social and emotional wellness of our students. We've had lengthy conversations about the fact that we feel like we offer really great service to our students and that we need a more narrow focus for this group to talk about how do we get parents working on social and emotional wellness for students at a very early age when they first enter the system in kindergarten and have some organized structure around that all the way through. So we're going to meet on April 23rd for our first meeting to start working through that process. In addition, we have sort of a special Board of Education meeting on May 13th where we're going to be having sort of a follow-up to our conversations with Kimberly Ray and David Cook coming in, sort of well known on doing a presentation on his himself and his son's work with some of the addiction issues that he's gone through. And so after our board meeting on May 13th, we'll be having a special presentation for those that want to
Yeah,
stay.
and just for
I think
board
would be
members, we will start that meeting on May 13th at 6 p.m.
neat.
And then we will start this program,
After that.
yeah, approximately 7 p.m.
And that's in connection with the Saline Police Chief as well. So Karen's coordinated that.
Right.
So I think it's just a continuing effort.
Okay. Gap closure, Assistant Superintendent Warren.
Our projected budget that was passed in January showed a fund balance of 4.89%. We had a budget gap of just under $60,000, so making up that gap would bring us to the 5%. Overall, our budget appears to be on target, except for those areas that are affected by the weather. I passed out prior to the meeting a spreadsheet showing the comparison between our 2012-13 utility costs and 13-14 utility costs, both electric and gas, and as well as a report from Constellation Energy regarding the polar vortex and the effects on the prices. We have had the coldest winter on record since 81-82, and utilities through February are running $308,000 higher than the same period last year. We have not received the March invoices yet, or April, but of course both March and April have continued to be colder than last year. We've talked in the past about the rates that are locked in, and that has saved us a great deal of money, but the rates are locked in on our average usage, and we have far exceeded our average usage this year. We also have turned over our invoices to Rob Mills. He's our heating and cooling technician, and he loves to analyze this data, And so he's going to look at them in very great detail to make sure that they're accurate and that, you know, the charges seem appropriate based on his understanding of what we, you know, our energy usage is. Additionally, I talked to Patty Haynes, our transportation director, and this cold weather and bad roads have kind of wreaked havoc on her department as well. They've had to replace 4 transmissions, multiple starters, multiple rear tire seals and brakes, and that's even on newer buses. And that's due to the wear and tear from the cold and from the really bad back roads, you know, the condition of the back roads. So, you know, there's going to be some additional costs there as well. On another note, each year we institute a purchase order cutoff, and that cutoff this year is this Friday, April 18th. At that point, we don't allow any new purchase orders unless it's for seasonal items or emergencies or things that are covered by a grant. This year, we're going to be very diligent in not allowing those, you know, any additional purchases. And we asked all administrators to be diligent looking at their budget. You know, there are open POs out there, and just because they're there doesn't mean that they need to spend all the money. So we're asking them to be diligent in helping us cover this gap from the increased utilities.
So you're on vacation through Friday then?
Pardon?
You're on vacation through Friday?
Nope.
Not answering her phone.
Mailbox is full.
It's actually next week, that's the issue. On the revenue side, of course, we'll continue to maximize our revenue in any way we can, but we do this on a regular basis anyway. We're making sure we're getting all our best practice. You know, we've done diligent Section 25 reporting, looking at all of our Act 18 funding and so on, you know, to make sure that we're capturing all that revenue that we can.
Two of the areas that, you know, we talked about, you know, our technology department and our maintenance department, we've talked directly to those departments and kind of looked at things that they had intended to do late in the year, this year, that need to be potentially moved into next year, really to make sure that we're as tight as possible. As positions become open and vacant, our intention will be to not fill any vacant positions for the remainder of the year. You know, we have, you know, we're on target in so many areas, but this, you know, this issue is something we're going to need to figure out a way to get to close. So we knew it would be impacting us a little bit. I think it's impacting us a little bit more than we anticipated.
Are the snow days impacting us with the extra days at the end of the calendar?
Well, you know, there's two. There are, and we don't consider them, but there are some savings associated with snow days, because, you know, there are certain things that don't operate. So the fact that we have 6 less days in the calendar now, even though we're making it 3, does have a financial benefit. Now, the downside to that is that we pushed enough snow and had generated enough costs associated with overtime that's likely to eat up the vast majority of those savings. So.
And kind of the same with transportation, the overtime for the mechanics,
so
buses.
So there is kind of I think we don't necessarily aren't looking at additional costs associated with adding the 3 days back in or adjusting those days, but it does mitigate some of the savings that we potentially could have had.
So do we have a dollar number on that variance? Because we probably did pay a lot of overtime, legitimate overtime, for snow removal,
Right.
working on buses, things like that. Have we tallied that number up?
I have not looked at it, you know, line by line basis, but just kind of overall through March 31st, this year we're running at 67.41% of our budget, and last year we were at 66.25.
Okay.
If we were running at that same rate, it would be a difference of $351,000. So it's pretty much the utilities.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, between the labor variance and, you know, I think some of the things they did with the buses and that, and, you know, we're probably up close to 400K at this point. And the electricity's real. The business that I'm in, we're very heavily dependent on electricity. And we buy electricity out on the open market, and we just got hammered in January and February. I'm talking millions and millions and millions of dollars in that. So we may have a little gap closure on. We got put that on Sarah. Own gap closure.
Yeah.
I got a big headache, but I think everybody's, you know, been hammered on this.
Right.
And this is why we have a fund balance. You know, we talk about why we need to have a fund balance. This is exactly why we need to have the fund balance. Because something like this pops up on us, 400K hits our doorstep. You know, there's not not a lot of areas, we can go and grab 400K out of the existing budget.
Right.
And that, so we need to have that fund balance so that when events like this do occur, we're prepared for them. In that, and as long as we understand it, we rationalize the numbers, we can all live with that.
Jan, is there insurance on the tire repair from the roads? Any way to recover there from
I will check
anybody?
on that. I'm not aware of it, but I will check on it.
Sometimes the county is liable for the roads, for, failure to maintain the roads, and sometimes, I don't know how it works, but I know there's some examples where it applies.
Yeah.
They sure weren't interested in talking to me when I got a flat tire on at a pothole.
Well, I think that's probably the answer. I just asked the question.
My son.
Well, just as a side issue, the county commission voted to keep the road commission as an independent entity. There was a movement there to bring it into the county commission, and that effort did not prevail. So the road commission will continue to be an independent entity.
Speaking of insurance, though, one thing that I am checking on is we had to run our heat in the gym where we had the water damage to dry out the floor, and I'm going to see if they'll cover some of the heating costs from that. So, don't know if it'll work, but
Yep.
Worth a shot. Okay. Paul, any update on the budget committee?
Last
we
we
just
met,
got
we
the
just
update.
pretty much discussed the same items
Yeah.
minus the increased utility costs, just looking at ways to close the gap and using the new 5-year projection tool to look forward to the next budget.
Policy committee update. Did Chief or Diane want to say anything to that?
I think it basically was, we talked about
On
the
paper?
changes we need to
Okay.
make in the document. And they're just subtle things, but now that we've changed, from club and varsity, so there's some wording that needs to be.
Self-funded and district subsidized.
Yeah. I don't have to say that yet because we
No,
haven't done
that's
it,
true.
so.
Okay.
The other thing at the next policy meeting, we are going to be talking more about our missions. Probably we talked about it 2 meetings ago, and that'll be back on the agenda.
Okay, excellent. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to authorize items A through E as part of the consent agenda.
So move.
Chief, with a second from trustee Freeze. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items scheduled on the next agenda, which is next Tuesday.
Yeah, to know, we will be meeting again next Tuesday, the 22nd. Actually, I should say you will be meeting. I will be in Washington, D.C. with the rest of the 8th grade students that will be attending that field trip for the district. So the meeting will take place. Mr. Lodge will be in my stead. The Haiti group will be talking about their trip this past spring break and how that event and activity went. Mr. Pike will be here with that. Mr. Warziniak will be here talking about, we had a group of students who were in Spain over the break as well. They'll be talking about that. And then Mr. Lodge will be unveiling you guys to study up. You will be taking some student assessments at the next meeting. Kindergarten and first grade, so these are ones you do not want to miss these, because the Twitter sphere will tell you who it is.
Daddy Tanner will have a field day.
Exactly, yeah. So, but yeah, the state of assessment for Saline schools, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. If some of you recall, we had a meeting a few years ago at the high school media center. We talked about that.
No, this is my seat too, so.
Also, I will be at the meeting next Tuesday. I think originally I'd sent out that I was going to be absent, but part of our gap closure is my trip to Houston's been postponed, so I will be here. This is the second opportunity for members of audience to address the board for up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Okay. Next meeting will be held next Tuesday, April 22nd, here at 6:30 at Liberty. And with that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Trustee Carter with a second from the chief. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're done.